fault. It's actually your fault that we don't record the pre-show.
An impediment.
Yeah, your guitar is an impediment. Your hobby is an impediment. Or maybe that's your
To my
future
other
profession.
hobby.
To your other hobby. That's how it works. So, you were talking... So, Dandadan or Dandadan, however the hell it's pronounced. You're not going to watch it.
Oh, you know what? I should have gone back. So I didn't realize there was I forgot we had a controversy about how you say it. So AJ Beckles, who's one of the American voice actors for the show, was talking about the show on Instagram. And I should have listened and paid attention to how he said it.
Yeah, you should have listened. Oh, you still don't know. So you have nothing to contribute other than a voice actor talked about it.
Here, I can do it right now.
Okay.
But no, the issue that I have is...
Put this up to your mic.
Person in the crew is a huge fan. Like, we all really, really want this to succeed because it's an incredible story, and we're just lucky to be a part of it. So anybody that supported us up until now, thank you. Anybody that's going to support us after seeing this episode, thank you. I'm looking forward to the journey, and I hope you love it. I know you will. Hey, y'all. As of the recording of this video,
that was useless.
we have a half an hour before the premiere of Dandadan.
He said Dandadan. But yeah. I mean, that's how you pronounce it. There's no
vowel.
Said
you didn't know how. You said however.
Technically, there's no vowel in Japanese that's ah. They don't have that apple sort of pronunciation. So it really threw me off when in the opening song it goes Dan-da-dan instead of Don-da-don. But I could, and even though the katakana and spelling is Don-da-don.
Actual knowledge after you're like, oh, however you say it.
Jesus, hi Diego. I'm gonna.
Morning.
Oh, that's really loud. It's very loud. Let me go ahead and can I lower you? Hold on, I'm lowering you. See here. List how others hear Diego. It only affects the live call, not the recording. Well, that's disappointing. Riverside. Okay. Go ahead and say something.
I'm literally just on my phone.
Yeah, we heard we heard some pretty intense background noise, and then you screamed and you made love to my ear.
Oh, I didn't feel like I was talking that loud, but all right.
No, you weren't. It was just it was your volume.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's actually not your fault, but I just being dramatic. It's my thing. So you're not gonna watch Dandadan, Jonesy, until it's done?
Yeah. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of streaming was great for a while. But these shows where they're like, hey, we're gonna make you wait 2 years in between, but also we're gonna dole it out to you 1 week, or weekly. No, I'm done with that.
You're done with that? You're the reason why the industry is imploding. It's all you.
I am the reason.
Specifically you.
Canceled.
Why? Because stuff isn't being watched on the daily and.
No, he just waits until the season's done before he bothers watching something.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are like that. I was like that with Rings of Power.
Yeah, you guys need
the second season done?
Yes.
See, he's fucking this shit. He's like, oh yeah, is it done yet? Can I start watching it yet now?
Yeah, now that it's done, I'm gonna watch it. Yeah, I'm honestly gonna tell you, you cannot switch formats nowadays. You're gonna stream, you have to release everything at once.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
Netflix is the only one that does that.
No, Netflix isn't the only one that does that.
Who
Amazon
else
also does that.
Amazon doesn't do that.
Yes,
he just asked if all the Rings of Powers came out. It's been releasing week by week.
No. But Vox Machina just released 3 episodes.
Oh, you're saying they do. I agree. There should be one strategy for each streamer. That I agree with. But I don't think every single streamer has to do bulk releases. That I don't agree with.
I mean, if they set the standard that way, bro, because the same thing was happening with Amazon for a bit.
Don't give me that shit. He's like, they set the standard.
They did.
Yeah, Amazon set the standard for 2-day shipping, but ain't nobody else but Amazon doing that.
Walmart Plus does it.
Well, that's Walmart. You really just took another giant ass company. Who's like, oh yeah, well this giant company. I'm talking about.
Well, that company could possibly compete.
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Who the fuck are you? You have to compare apples to apples, bro. You can't just be like, well, my mom and pop shop ain't gonna do shit. Where else do you stream local shit? Nowhere.
That's a good point. It's touche. Well, Yeah, that's a good point.
Slingbox, where the hell it's called. Sling.
Yeah,
TV.
I can't believe my Tubi account ain't fucking pulling out all this content.
What about my Quibi account?
Apparently, there's a Power Rangers movie on Tubi. I gotta see if I can find that.
Which one?
No. Like some made-up Tubi movie.
I don't know what that means. You're gonna need more clarifying language there.
So there is okay, you know when Transformers comes out and then you go to the video store and then there's like transmogrifiers, right?
Yeah, transmorphers.
It's like that. There's
Got it. It's like a fake movie.
It's like Power Morphers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I said fake. I
literally
you
did.
I said some fake.
But with the context that I now have in my head, I understand. Okay. So wait. So you're no longer. I don't know. The industry is swinging hard back to like weekly releases in general because they found out that actually having weekly releases is good for money, the bottom line. Also, having advertisers actually good for the bottom line. We actually get paid for the things that this is stuff we figured out decades ago, and we're swinging back to it. So as I was saying before you popped in, Diego, is like this. I wonder how long this age of TV we have in now, because there's no way it's not sustainable, first of all, to have this high quality TV, have this long turnaround, and have it currently be set as it is long term. So are we going to go back to what it came before? And are we going to accept a drop in quality to like standard TV?
What do you mean standard TV?
Like what you would consider
network television.
Network television. There you go.
Right. But network television gave us 20 to 25 episode half-hour shows running on what I would consider...
Or an hour.
Or even hour-long shows.
Or hour-long shows. In terms
of quality, but the quality of filming was just like not nearly as good as it is, as good as film. And today's
I will
TV,
accept a drop in quality.
Yeah, today's streaming is film quality.
Here's what I want.
But what I'm talking about is like in regards to the element of the show. I mean, look at the longest running shows right now on network television. They're
Grey's
not.
Anatomy.
I mean, other than anime, I would say.
They're not what?
They're not like over the top fantasy shows.
No, they're not.
Like, unless you're talking about like an HBO, right? HBO puts up like
those don't last
Games of Dragons and like all those, but like
Games of Dragons.
Yeah, Games of Dragons. But like you look at like ABC, right? Like long running shows are like that are like really, really good. It's, Elementary, it's Abbott Elementary. Sorry, I was thinking like comedies.
Abbott
like,
Elementary. Sitcoms.
Yeah, like sitcoms or like drama. Like you look at Grey's Anatomy or something like that. Like those are long hour shows that are like 20 some odd episodes per season.
Correct.
And those, I mean, I would say are not. I would say they're high quality, but they're not like super invested in like, oh, we have like, like Lord of the Rings, right? Where they have to have.
It's not special effects intensive.
That's what I'm saying, is that we might be heading back, swinging more back in that direction when it comes to TV in the future due to the economics of it.
Well, again,
here's what I want. You know what I want? I want British television.
Yeah.
That's all I'll
say.
Even
Doctor Who, right? Like the Doctor Who stuff, practical effects could be done relatively easy.
Somebody's picking up what I'm putting down, not making.
Yeah, I get it. This is what's gonna.
I saw the look on your face.
Well, I just don't care. I just don't care. I don't like BBC content that much.
Oh my God.
Well, you don't like Doctor Who?
No.
God, no. I hate Doctor Who.
Of course you don't.
I don't hate
he's
Doctor
black?
Who.
Jesus
I just don't
Christ.
like it. That's the only reason. Actually, I loved it up until now.
The latest one?
I'm kidding.
To be clear, I'm joking.
To be clear. Well, because he didn't seem to understand that I was kidding. He's like, wait, the latest one? I was like, no, I'm joking.
I just assume it's because the main character was...
So I watched the first 3 seasons of the reboot. Not 3 seasons, 3 Doctors. And I was just like, this just isn't for me. It's fine. It's just not for me. Through half of Matt Smith. And I think I made the right choice. I just don't think it's for me. Whatever.
Wow, that's crazy that you bailed out in the middle of a Doctor.
ironically, I think Matt Smith was my favorite Doctor up to that point. I just was just like, this isn't for me. I hated Tennant. Did not like Tennant at all. His Doctor was just not. He would always be like, have the savior complex and everyone would fucking die around him. It was just like, I was like, dude, you suck. You're a terrible Doctor. Anyway, that's enough about me and Doctor Who. The point of this conversation actually was circling back to you were talking about the industry situation, and you don't want to watch Dawn to Dawn until it actually is all finished. So, good for you. Good for you.
I might do it. Like, you're going to watch the first. How was the first episode?
I liked it a lot. It was really good. What I really liked about it is there was almost no internal monologue. There was like one line of internal monologue the entire time. And I was like, oh shit. They're expositing aloud, like in a good way. That's good. And then I actually switched over to Blue Box, which I love the manga. And I watched the first or part of the first episode, and I was like, oh no, so much internal voiceover. This is gonna bother me. Because they had a moment where she gave him a Kit Kat, and then he basically said, she gave me a treat, and I'm like, did not need that, did not need you to repeat what we just saw happen on screen. It's really annoying. So we'll see how that goes, even though I love Blue Box, the manga.
All right. You liked it. I'll watch it.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and start the show.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes,
yeah, hold on. First things first, we got to do the intro. So here we go. Oh yeah, you sent me a new logo to use. I don't know if I want to use that logo yet.
I was shaking my head like right at the... Is that still there?
It's there because I didn't use. We got to get that logo redone.
He's lazy. He has no idea.
No. It's not that I'm lazy. I just don't want to use a logo, even temporarily, with AI assets.
Why?
Because I feel like just that inside of me,
but the
it feels
thing
wrong.
that matters is us primarily, and
no, I get it.
Wait, what?
I don't want to use a logo with AI assets because I don't like. What do you mean? Why?
Because what? No. You were about to give an answer and then you stopped. What? What's
I stopped. Well, because I think it's obvious. I don't want to
support artists.
Yes, there you go. That's it.
Okay, so here's the thing. We went on Fiverr. We found a guy. We were like, "Hey, do the thing," and he fucked it up.
He did.
Now I'm like, give it to the machines.
No, we just need to give it to another person. That mindset is going to destroy. You're muted yourself. Your argument is so bad you muted yourself.
It's because my son keeps slamming the door in and out.
Oh, okay. I thought you literally started just muting yourself as you started talking, and I was like, that's not an effective way to carry an argument, Jonesy. I don't know if you know this.
Child.
You're a lawyer. You're supposed to know this shit. You can't mute yourself.
It's all about the children. Yeah, but like we found a guy. We were like, yeah, can you do something like this? And he's like, you be like this? And like, we're stuck with the bullshit that we have. And you're like, then you go back to like, let's support artists. Like, no, absolutely not.
Well, just don't support that artist. Don't support that artist.
As like we were talking about mom and pop streamers before. Now we went to the mom and pop store. The mom and pop store gave us something that fell apart immediately. I'm like, but it's at Walmart. You're like, I don't want to shop at Walmart. But it's right there on the shelf.
Find another mom and pop store. Find another mom and pop store.
No.
All right, fuck
I bought you the shit from Walmart.
No,
use
I'll find a mom and pop store and I'll get that dealt with over the next couple of weeks.
You were like, here's the guy.
But the thing is, you drove it. I blame this is a middleman issue.
I've known you for years.
Maybe I'll go to the artist. Maybe I'll go to the artist.
So you've known me for like how many years at this point? Would
7
you
years,
say
6 years?
I have many flaws? Would you say my ability to communicate is one of my flaws? If the answer is no, we're all done.
It's no. Hey Diego, can you mute yourself really quick? We're hearing a lot of shuffling.
Sure,
around.
sorry.
No worries. Yeah, that's a fair point though. It's Anyways, we got stuff to talk about if I recall correctly. Someday we'll have an episode where we don't start off with talking about how terrible our logo is. Next week or the week after, within the next month, we're gonna have a new logo. It's gonna be mom and popped, a mom and pop logo. Okay, I can't do it. I can't.
Moving on to news.
Moving on to news. Okay, so sorry, I wasn't mentally prepared for this. So we got a couple of interesting things here. Number one, a little bit of news from James Gunn, also known as James Gunn, who is the guy who is running things over at DC Studios. He released a new amazing announcement saying that over the moon excited to announce the newest DC Studios / Warner Brothers Pictures animation greenlit film for theaters. Highlight for theaters, which is super key. Dynamic duo, the story of Robin, or should I say Robins, as in Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. The first feature film from the visionary Swaybox, a mixture of animation, puppetry, and CGI. A script from the wonderfully talented Matt Aldrich, produced with our partners at Matt Reeves' 6th and Idaho. This is something special. So there's a lot to break down there. And I know you sent us a sort of an updated piece on more details regarding the movie. But what were your initial thoughts regarding this announcement? We'll start with Jonesy.
I am conflicted, but also excited. So there's a part of me that's like, do I actually believe James Gunn when he says he's excited about things? And I think at this point in his career, the answer is yes.
Were you burnt by The Flash?
No. Did he say The Flash was good? I don't remember that.
Oh yeah,
no,
he says
wasn't even involved.
He did.
He wasn't.
No, he wasn't involved. But he did say, after he took a hold of DC Studios, he said, The Flash, which resets the DC universe, it's a fantastic film, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. It was him. It was Stephen King. It was fucking Tom Cruise. There were a lot of people. Man, I must have completely forgot about James Gunn being involved in that. Fuck this guy. Anyway.
He wasn't involved, to be clear. He just said it was a good film.
I definitely remember we were podcasting and I was pissed off at all the people that were trying to gaslight us and tell us how great that movie was.
Well, I think it's the company line, right? You have to fall in line. It's a brand new thing. You're coming into it. He's in charge of DC. He has to be like, he can't be like, the movie was shit.
You have to fall into it, Jonesy. You can't. First of all, you already working with. Hold on, Jonesy. Working within the industry, you can't burn bridges because you never know where you're going to work with people again. It's even more so when you're under contract from DC Studios that you don't want to come in and be like, this thing is coming out, it's shit, because you're just going to bomb your own universe before you get to it.
My expectation is, well, it's not his universe, right? That was the previous.
Well, you're going to bomb. Whatever.
I don't
you know what I mean?
have an expectation that he comes in and says anything. I think for me, the problem was they had so many people come out because it was more than just those three guys that talked about how great it was. And I know why Stephen King did it, because the director did it, right? So you had there were people that were brought into it. I don't know why Tom Cruise was like, oh, this movie's great. Like, I have no idea.
Tom Cruise, when did that movie come out again? That came out soon after COVID, right?
Yeah.
I think Tom Cruise is just happy to be back in theaters. Yeah.
Did you heard his industry rant, right? Like when somebody was,
you got to tell me what you're talking
COVID
about.
Protocols on set, and he went off on them. So yeah,
I normally am not in favor of like freakouts, but I feel like that was one where I was just like, I support you, Tom Cruise, in that, because it was a different time. It was too much, but at the same time, I get it, because that literally jeopardized the well-being of hundreds of people who could have been out of work as a result of someone being careless.
I think if you manage people, you can't do that. You can have a moment where you get on people and tell them like, hey, here's the protocol, here's the thing, but you don't scream at them like that. I don't think that's
fair.
For managing
that's
people.
Fair. No, I agree 100%. You're right. You're right. It has less to do. I agree with the mentality. I don't agree with what happened.
100%. I agree with that. But going back to Dynamic Duo, I like I like everything around it more than I like the idea. So I like that Matt Reeves is involved. I like that the writer Coco is involved. I like that James Gunn is excited for it. I'm actually kind of interested to see what this animation style is. And
Speaking of which,
those things make me. All those things make me more excited about it than the actual story, because I like that it's different. But it'll be interesting to see how they make these two friends.
So what we're looking at right now is Swaybox Studios' website, which shows some of the things that they have. It is really so this is a quote from another article. Swaybox uses a technology known as Momo animation, which is a cross between CGI animation, practical elements of stop motion, and live action real-time performance. The result is a long-form storytelling billed as visually breathtaking, dynamically expressive, and more human. So you can see kind of what you're seeing on the screen right now. And actually, that's just on their web. So if we go to their reel, I'm actually curious. So this is from 2017. So this is older still. But here we go. It shows it's kind of strange, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very
so
Coraline,
is that what the
is this what the
movie? But it's like live action. It's like it's not quite stop motion.
I want this.
It's weird, right? Insane.
I'm into this.
I do.
Are you able to hear this, by the way?
Yeah.
You can hear it?
Yeah, we can hear it. It's really loud, though, but we can hear it.
All right, sorry, I did not mean. I was curious. I thought only I was able to hear it, so I wasn't sure.
You can hear it. It's super loud. But that looks cool. I really like that. But yeah, the story itself, I'm not too much a fan of what they said it's going to be about, but everything else about the project has me really interested in it.
Yeah. So this is a swing, one way or another. This is a huge swing, which I like. I like that he's really seeming to focus on creator visions, rather than, what is just going to be. There's a variability of the different types of storytelling that's happening. It's not just going to be one
as opposed to what
style.
does the audience like Pete Docter?
Oh gosh, here we go. Teeing Diego up. All right, Diego. We had a conversation last week with regards to Pete Docter, and I think you found a recent.
Have to go into it. I was just kidding.
You can't bring this stuff up and just not address it.
Again,
you want to go into it?
I inferred it from that fucking thing. That's how it felt like based on everything. But
I feel like you need to explain yourself other than I inferred it from that fucking thing. What happened?
Yeah. All right. So there was that. And again, I don't know. I don't know if I was here for the discussion that you guys had when Doctor
actually
talked to Miyazaki.
In retrospect, I think maybe Diego, you and I had that discussion alone.
Did we?
I think so. I think it was one of your conversations where you were like writing Bart on the way to like work.
I'm trying to remember if that was something that we discussed on that, because maybe I didn't really have much of I couldn't really talk much because the sound in the background or whatever, but yeah,
you probably weren't focused completely, but we did talk about it. But let's go ahead and just talk about it again really quick. Let's go dive into it.
Oh, well, the other thing that also came in is like, I didn't realize we didn't have the inside out or the Pixar behind the scenes look from the article yet. So at that point, it did really make sense. I mean, it was kind of like, okay, you don't really pay attention to the audience, but
hold on.
Yeah.
Let's add some context.
What?
So the context is Pixar's Chief Creative Officer Pete Docter went on a press tour for Inside Out 2, mentioned that he had asked Hayao Miyazaki, when do you make changes for you, and when do you make changes for the audience? And Miyazaki replied, I never think about the audience. So what I remember about this, Diego's discussion, is you were like all on board with this discussion. And I came at it with like, this is a really privileged perspective that he has, that he cannot think about the audience and still, make a film that everybody in the world sees. Whereas all of us people who don't have audiences or so have tiny audiences built in have to really cater to what is expected and what audiences like and what tropes there are. Otherwise, we're not going to get any people consuming our content. So that's, I think, where our discussion went last time. I'm not sure if you recall that.
I do recall that now that you mention it, because we had talked about your book and like your series and like how I'm more of a fan of like niche stories, because if it's like mainstream, it kind of becomes diluted with a bunch of other stuff.
Right. Exactly.
But I mean, to go back to the original, to the topic at hand, I don't think we had the behind the scenes, inside out, like story stuff from the IGN article yet at that time. because I think that would have given that stuff. And so when I read the article after looking at this thing, it made sense to me that, like, he got invested to try to make the movie as mainstream as possible, right? I think that's Pixar's whole thing. I think they've even gone and said, like, we want to not focus on these, like, weird little ideas. We want to focus on our established, like, franchises and move that forward, which is why we're getting a bunch of different fucking sequels for everything now.
Which is funny because I never got the impression, I never felt to me, and maybe feel differently, that Inside Out 2 didn't feel like a diluted follow-up to Inside Out 1 to me. It didn't feel like they were like, oh, well, they are changing things in order, I guess, other than maybe the Riley Gay thing, which is...
I was about to say, well, there was that.
Yeah, I just realized that as I was talking. But I don't even know if
that's an audience reaction thing.
You're right, that's not... Well, it is... maybe it is. It's more of a studio reaction, right? Like a suit reaction, because they're saying, well, it must be because of this.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, yeah, because that's why Lightyear failed, because it had a same-sex kiss.
That's exactly it. No other reason.
Then the question I guess my thing is, I think it's a big inference that you make between him asking another creator a question and the changes that he may or may not have made on this particular film, because that change that we're talking about is a broad-based change based on their concern of basically homophobia. The implication there is that Pete Docter himself is somehow either homophobic or concerned about that threat. And so
or makes creative decisions based on potentially homophobic audiences.
Right.
Homophobic.
And so I think that is maybe partially different than the question that he asked. I also think that conversation is a relatively unique opportunity to ask a creator that I imagine that he has some reverence for, affection for, at least in terms of his creative output. And so, to Jammer's point about people that have an audience and things that they do, I would ask that question. I would ask that question of another creator, like, what's your process? How do you create? Who do you think about when you're creating? I wouldn't necessarily think that also means that he is either 50% or 60% making those decisions for the reason he asked the question. It might just have been a question of opportunity or out of curiosity. I also think that when we talked about privilege, I think Pete Docter is just as privileged in the industry that he's in, that he doesn't necessarily have to do that. I think that at the point he is in his career, a lot of the changes that he makes are probably based on his experience. There probably is some built in, like, what's the audience going to think or feel based on his experience. But I also think that it seems like a lot of it has to do.
I think it's a lot of studio politics too.
There's that too.
Yeah, I think it's the big thing, because I think you're right. Like, I think if he was in a vacuum creatively, he would not have had to make a decision like that, but he also has to appease the people who are just like crunching the numbers, who are saying, oh no, it's because of this. So he has to actively pick his battles and give in to some notes in order to do things that the suits would think result in bigger audiences. But
There's
I think
a part of me that would almost want to see how the question was asked, because I've done this before, where someone has told you a thing that you think is complete bullshit. You have the opportunity to ask someone else who is at least at the same level as you and go, like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, that's complete bullshit. And he gets to turn around and look at the person like, I told you that was bullshit. And like, here's the guy saying that, like, reconfirming that I told you we don't have to make changes based on what the audience wants. And it should be about, like, what is, like, story first? What's the creative process first? So I've told you, Pete Docter told you, now he's told you, can we go make art?
the only problem is that Hayao Miyazaki's movies don't make nearly as much as Pixar movies, nor do they have to make nearly as much. So
sure, no, definitely not based on the metrics that they had.
But yeah. I would, if I were him and I was having some argument with a suit, I would still use that as a wedge or use that as supporting evidence for my argument, because
so I don't know what you
it doesn't make.
I have to say something. I have to say Pete Docter isn't a lawyer,
money,
Jonesy.
I got it. But what I would say is, while it doesn't make as much money, I could still make the argument that and while he's not a lawyer, I could still make the argument that I want to be able to create the way that I want to create and not necessarily have to think about the audience.
Well, I will
and then they would say create for a fraction of the budget. Sorry, go ahead, Diego.
No, I was going to say the other aspect of the article from the IGN article that I kind of looked at it from this perspective, Jonesy, is when they mentioned that everything has to go through him, that it's a bottleneck situation for the process for Pixar, that basically everything has to go through Doctor, and so it becomes a thing where like he has essentially the final say on everything that the studio is doing, not
but
just
I could hold
one.
those two things as being true, but not the same. I could still think everything is a bottleneck that has to go through him because he's a manager and because he's been doing it. I don't necessarily then think that thought process that he has is all about what the audience thinks. I can still think those two things are separate.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just telling you that's how I inferred it, and obviously that's kind of what I was kind of looking at both of those, and for me, it's gotten to the point where I think at least from what we have heard from not only Pixar, but from people that worked at Pixar, that the studio mentality has changed to be more about like what stories we want to tell, to more of like what stories can we tell that are going to make us money.
Yeah.
So that's essentially kind of where I'm going with it, where like it doesn't feel like, especially because of what their own commentary says, like we're not going to focus on these sort of like smaller individualistic stories. We're going to focus on something that's more mainstream, is what, I don't remember the exact quote right now.
Did he say that specifically?
It was that was Pixar's and Disney's like sort of line across the board, which I would imagine
I remember
he would be involved.
I was just curious who specifically said it.
I can't.
Here, I'll find you. You go ahead and discuss. I'll find it.
Yeah, but that's kind of where my mind was, and him being like I said, the main decision maker at Pixar, he would be the one that would be put in that position, right? So that's kind of where my the mindset was for that. So but going back to this movie, right, that we were talking about, the WB movie, the Robbins movie, I'm excited for what the technology brings, because I really like that. I like that aesthetic, by the way. I like the way it looks.
Yeah.
I do trust James Gunn in terms of telling a story, though. So because he is, again, going to be the sort of overall, like, I don't think he's the writer or director in this movie, correct?
No.
So
the writer is the guy that wrote Coco. I don't remember who the director is.
So, but I can imagine that he would have some input to try to make that movie as good as it possibly can, right? Like sort of like a similar role to like a doctor, or like trying to think of someone else, another executive, Kevin Feige maybe, type thing. I don't know if Feige got that involved, but he has a proven track record of making successful things. I really loved his Peacemaker show.
Oh my god, it was so good.
It was such a good show. I really enjoyed he did Suicide Squad too, right?
Yeah.
The Suicide Squad,
one.
Correct.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad, the sequel. I really enjoyed that as well. And obviously Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is phenomenal. So far, everything he has been a part of in terms of movies and even TV shows has been really enjoyable, really entertaining. So I don't see how, and again, we haven't seen one single WB thing, but it's an animated movie. And I'm always down for more WB content, or especially DC content, because I think that they are, something that's really, really good. I mean, you have great characters, great stories to be able to tell properly. And while Zack Snyder did have some level of redeemability after that 4-hour freaking Justice League movie, I don't think that was like the way that the stories needed to go. I don't think it needed to be super freaking dark all the time, gritty, Batman, Superman stuff. It could be lighthearted and fun, enjoyable, and so it'll be very interesting to see how he brings. Because is this slated to come out like before the first new live action movie?
I don't remember seeing a date.
I don't think there was a release date.
Okay, that was just an announcement.
Yeah, let me double check.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what it brings. I think it'll be really cool with that technology, seeing what stuff happens.
No release date.
Okay.
No release date, but
I
also
think we're still scheduled to get Superman before anything else, right?
No, we're getting Creature Commandos in December.
That's right.
That's going to be the first thing. But the first, film is going to be next year's Superman.
Okay.
And with regards to the other thing that we were talking about, the Pixar quote. So there was part of a quote. It says there was a real and intense period of self-scrutiny, feeling like we messed things up in a way, Doctor said. They talked about all the basically autobiographical things like Luca, Elemental, Turning Red, which were all kind of semi-autobiographical from the creators. And then he said, I don't think we can ever let ourselves off the hook of making sure that we deliver the best possible and most relatable films. So I think that's where the inference comes from, where the article from Bloomberg said the studio's movies should be less a pursuit of any director's catharsis and instead speak to a commonality of experience. That part was from Bloomberg, and I don't know what quotes they pulled from in order to make that, inference there. Yeah.
Interesting.
So there you go.
Okay, but that was him though, right? That they were quoting.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
It's a shitty quote.
In what way? Like it's not a good quote, or it's just
Well, no,
it's a bad
we
thing
talked
that
about
said?
it before, right? Because the conversation I think we had before was about the director's catharsis or whatever. It was specifically about things being relatable. And I think my outburst was like, how is Turning Red not relatable? Like, I remember we were having that discussion. I was pissed that somehow that got tossed in there. And yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, that is that. The next exciting piece of news is actually, do we really have any other news? I don't think we really have much in terms of news. I know we do have a couple things we want to discuss in terms of things that we've watched. We have the long-awaited Terminator 0 episode or discussion that we'll dive into, and then I know all of us also had a chance to check out The Wild Robots. So do you want to talk about those next?
Yeah, sure.
You looked like you wanted to say something, Jonesy.
Well, no, I was thinking that the other piece of news that got posted was the live-action Rugrats. I didn't know if you guys actually wanted to discuss that.
I don't think so. It's fine unless you have real strong opinions about the live-action Rugrats with CGI babies.
I did love. So I appended an Instagram post to that where people did like live-action people as the characters, which I thought was just funny. But no,
I think it's the voices that they were trying to do, right? Because they were like our Dreamcast.
Oh, was that the reason?
Yeah, it was Cursed Cat Chat. And my favorite one, I think, had to be Ed Sheeran as Chucky, just because.
Why? Because he's a redhead?
Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They were just like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's have him be envisioned by like how he, looks essentially.
Go ahead, Jonesy. You look like you're about to say something.
No, I was looking at the article again. So,
okay.
Yeah. No. Let's move on to the other stuff. I have very little to say about Terminator except like I'm curious how your experiment worked out.
So go ahead. We'll start with your overall thoughts and then talk about what your suggestion.
So listen, here's the thing. I've seen 2 80s reboot properties recently. One was good. The other one was terrible. One was the Terminator reboot, and then the other one was Transformers 1. One was significantly better than the other. What suggestions would I make for this? So I just thought that this was incredibly boring for a story that's about like robots and killing and the future and destiny and what can we change and all this other stuff. Like they really just sat in a dome and
Didn't they
talk about
just?
it for
Didn't they
long
just?
time. So one of my least favorite things is, you've probably heard me talk about, it's like children doing dumb things. So it was discussions in a dome and kids doing dumb shit. And I'm like, none of this is interesting to me. So my suggestion to Jammer was, I think, watch the first episode and the last
First three episodes. First three episodes, then the last episode.
I was like, how many episodes are there? 8?
I think so.
Yeah. And it's like,
there are 8
there
episodes.
are so many filler episodes. Yeah. You could watch half of it and you'd be fine and understand everything that happened and get the most out of it without it.
For the most part, I don't know if you'd get the most out of it. I'm sure there are other things you'd be missing. Like, so we're going to dive into spoilers because why not? I really don't know how much there is to spoil in this show. So it's like, it starts off, you have this main character who just wants to, I don't even remember. It was so bland. As I was watching, I was like, the character designs are it looks okay. It's competent. It's fine, but it's kind of blah, kind of boring looking. Kind of reminds me of, I'm trying to remember, what is this show? Did you ever watch Witch Hunter Robin? Does it look like that? But for some reason, it reminded me of Witch Hunter Robin.
I don't think I've seen that in a long time.
And also, and I think I might have a controversial opinion of this, but the Ghost in the Shell series, I thought, has always been one of the ugliest things I've ever seen.
Standalone complex?
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't like the way that show looks, and this reminds me of that.
It's IG Production, right? Is the animation studio?
Yeah, Production IG, exactly.
But the thing that I would say to you about Ghost in the Shell is it's also like 15, 20 years old.
It's 20 years old. It's 20 years old. Well, this felt like a mid-2000s anime to me. Like, it kind of felt slow, a little bit over serious. There's really not a lot that I care about. I have never been more tempted to watch something at 1.5 times speed because everyone just moved so slow. Oh my God. I was like, walk faster, do something faster. Granted, it wasn't offensively like bad or anything. It was fine, but the first 3 episodes were done. I wouldn't have continued, and I'm happy. I was just, I'm gonna watch the last episode, see how it goes. And the main thing I lost was a little bit of plot context here and there. I'm like, oh, you mean that maid that very clearly was a robot is actually a robot? Okay, and then that's kind of it.
You missed nothing.
That's kind of it. There really wasn't anything I missed. I'm sure there was other things, but at the end, I just didn't care. Didn't care about the kids. I cared about the robot cat. I wonder what happened to the robot cat, but that's about it.
I see what you mean about Ghost in the Shell.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures. It's not ugly to me, though. Again,
that's fair.
It's old.
Yeah, it's because it's old. What if this came out in 2004? Would you feel the same way?
Ghost in the Shell came out in 2004?
Mm-hmm.
Or 2024? I don't know. I think I have so much attachment to Ghost in the Shell that my brain might ignore. Because for me, I would be more into the story than how it looked.
That's fair. All right, Diego. This is your moment to shine. Why are we wrong?
I hate having to be this person every fucking week. I
was just thinking that.
Am I always the person that's like, I was actually really enjoying the show. I enjoyed the show.
Which is fine.
And I went back and I read all these reviews afterwards, by the way, because I finished it too. And I think I'm in the minority here because everyone is fucking pissed off about the show.
Really?
Yeah, everyone online.
Why?
Everyone's pissed off
people
because they're like, the show is basically retreading same science fiction, sci-fi shit that has happened in the past. There's nothing new. There's nothing original. They're going through and trying to change the story. Like, that's not how the lore was. That Terminator model would just instantly crush people. Like, when they grab the kids or whatever, like, they never get close. Like, Cameron even said
that's the worst kind of criticism.
Yeah, and then it's like Cameron even said that there's a reason why he never let the robots get close to people unless it had to like crush them or kill them, because it would immediately do so. But meanwhile, the show it like completely just fucking like avoids that. Like, she's sitting there getting punched in the back of the like in her back, and like the Terminator's just punching her, and she's like, they never explain why she's the one who travels back in time.
I thought she was a Terminator. I thought she was a Terminator because of that.
Right, but they never, but if that's the case, like, people are like, well, then why didn't they show it? Like, it's a whole bunch of different things that people are talking about. But then her hand gets exploded, right? So then, like, obviously she's not because she gets a robot hand,
Right.
and they showed that. But that's the sort of shit that I'm like, this is the same people that go, well, Wookiees can't fucking talk like that. That's not how Wookiees talk.
Yes, it is.
It's like,
I
it's
agree.
like,
So
it's bad faith criticism. Hold on. Bad faith. Hold on. No, before you talk, I agree with you, Diego, 1000%. That is the worst type of criticism. That's literally. I always go back to Kyle, our friend Kyle, who has the worst criticism when it comes to The Last Jedi, talking about how
is it the bombs?
The bombs. He was like, they would not have a ship that gone into production with that, with that fault or that issue. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Stop. That's stupid. This is Star Wars. Like, stop. And everything you just said, I'm like, I can understand a little bit of annoyance of like them punching him. Like, why doesn't the Terminator just crush them? I can get that kind of, but is this a series? Whatever. I'll get over it.
Mine was a different one. So the one that I noticed that immediately took me out of it for a second. So there's a scene in the first episode, like in the first fight sequence, where she's running from it and like jumps on a chain, and so she's hanging from a chain, and the Terminator is hanging from her. I'm like, no, she's got to be a robot, because there's no way that this thing is like grabbing her ankle, hanging from her, and her ankle's just not being crushed by the weight of it hanging from her, and it's squeezing her. And so I thought about it for a second. I was like, am I thinking about this too seriously? Like, just the idea of a Terminator being as big as it is.
You were literally thinking, like, they showed the rope.
I don't know about that.
They showed the rope breaking under the load of the weight, but then you're like, well,
right, but her body
wasn't reacting to it, because again, from your perspective, you're like, this robot, like, and that was another point of contention too online, was that scene where they were like, he would have just fucking crushed her ankle, like immediately would have grabbed her, just crushed her ankle, and meanwhile she's letting go of her shoe, and like they were just like, again, it's a typical story, but that's what happens when you put these robots in the place, because then everything becomes super hypercritical of like, well, the robot would have just crushed her, the robot would have just done this, the robot would have just done that, and like, from my perspective, I'm like, who gives a fuck? Like, just watch and enjoy. Like, it's just,
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard not to think about how heavy a Terminator is.
Oh,
like, it was hard for my brain not to do that.
Yeah, and I think, but for me, like, obviously they show like, okay, she needs to get out, and from my perspective, it's like she needs to get out of the situation. But like, it was your typical anime tropes attached to a Terminator story, because of how they had to have action sequences, but they also had to have these dialogues with the robots and stuff, where like he wasn't trying to murder across the board, as we find out towards the end, like that he was brought back there by the kid grown up, right? And so,
for reasons unknown, right?
Well, yeah, because there's gonna be a second season, right? There's gonna be more to tell in the story.
Is there?
That's what I heard. That's what I was under the impression.
I mean, the plan is, yes, there's going to be a second season. Whether or not that happens, we'll see.
Right, it's a
concept of a plan.
Yeah, because they kept the story very open ended towards the end, and I would love to see this continue, because I think there's a lot of promise here. But again, I thought, anytime you have to involve kids, I think it's an aspect of like, well, why were the fucking kids there, right? And so obviously the kids are there because their stories also become important towards the end, because they grow up, and I'm thinking that little girl is the old lady who ends up being a mentor to her grandmother in like a weird way. Again, the parables of how time travel works, I did think that was one of the interesting concepts that they brought in, because I can't remember another Terminator addressing something like this, where they were like, oh yeah, every single time Skynet sends back someone to kill the person, they just kind of create their own new timeline. It doesn't become the same timeline. It's just different timelines all over the place.
It's like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, which, fine, if that's the case, cool. And then this timeline can exist outside of that timeline, then that to me made more sense. I was like, yeah, okay, let's just make it so that this is its own separate thing from all the shit that happened in all the other movies. It's its own sort of thing where like we actually have an AI that's combating against Skynet that doesn't really know whether Skynet is good or bad yet. And so now we have, going forward, this sort of like 3-pronged attack: human, Skynet, and Kokoro. And I mean, again, it's a brand new story. It's something new to be told in the universe. And I think my favorite part of it was that while a lot of these things that you're like, oh, you mean the maid who acted like a robot is a robot, the reason why she acted like a robot and why everything worked the way that it did is because of the fact that, he was from the future, came back, created a different stuff, had the idea that working with robots is actually how to get over it, which I think was very unique. I don't think another Terminator has addressed it like that, per se. Where, like, he's going against a rebellion. What?
I was just, he was like, I don't know if another Terminator addresses this. You're like, they do.
Well, which
they do address this, Diego.
Like, no, they do. So, Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, okay.
That's not a movie.
I never watched.
He said, "Is there another Terminator?" He didn't say movie.
Yeah, because I was talking about the movies. I was talking about movies.
But you didn't say movie. We're talking about a show.
Yeah, I know. But
so here's all that stuff. I don't care about because it was just a boring show to me. Yes. Look, at the end of the day, I was just bored watching it. Frankly, the kids were annoying, but they were the most interesting part. They were annoying, but they were the most interesting part because everyone else was boring. The main girl, boring. The dad, boring. The Terminator, boring. They were just kind of meandering and going there. I felt like there was no narrative drive.
You didn't like the dad
story.
Just being trapped in the volume, just talking to another machine?
No. I didn't like any. It was just all. I could forgive every single one of those things, Diego. I don't.
Are you ever gonna leave this room?
Don't you have to pee? I don't need new ideas. I don't need new ideas for me to be interested in something. I just need to care about what is happening and who they're happening to. And I didn't about really anything in the show except for the cat, who I felt bad for. I just want to know when the brother was like,
Dyson never have to pee. That's all I want. I didn't see a urinal.
The old 24 question, right? Does Jack Bauer ever pee?
And clearly what that says to me is fake Miles Dyson was not hydrated enough.
Yeah, he clearly wasn't sitting at his desk next to his giant water bottle, ready to hydrate at a moment's notice.
No. So yeah, I don't know. I agree. I just thought it was boring. And I don't necessarily need new ideas, like Jammer said. And plus, I've watched every iteration of Terminator because I really do enjoy this franchise. Sarah Connor Chronicles, they did have this idea of like, is Skynet good or is Skynet bad? And there was somebody that had a robot that was created in present day trying to answer this question. And then this other part about, they didn't necessarily talk about branching timelines, but this, I think there is an implication if you watch every movie that Genesis and what was the other one? Dark Fate at least play with this idea like these are not the same timelines. Because at least in one of those, John Connor dies.
Yeah, it was the latest one. He dies in like literally like the very beginning.
I wasn't gonna spoil it.
That's fine. So whatever. Like the movie's
actually
like fucking 5 years old now or 6 years old.
The movie's 5 years old. Yeah. It failed. It's fine.
So Terminator 3, right? They do something goofy with Judgment Day.
Rise of the Machines.
Different in Dark Fate, and they do something different in Genesis. So there's already this idea that these are all different timelines. So that didn't surprise me. They just kind of did the thing that Jammer hates. They said it out loud when I think it was already implied through a lot of this stuff and Sarah Connor Chronicles. So I don't know. They could do better.
They could do better.
The one thing,
speaking of doing,
the one thing that I will say is that I think this is the prime way to tell a Terminator story in terms of animation.
Like that.
It depends.
Oh, animation?
Yes. In terms of animation. And the reason for that is because you can do these really cool over-the-top action sequences and shit that's like crazy without costing you a fucking arm and a leg budgetary-wise. Because in terms of the budget to make this, I can't imagine that it was anywhere close to what the last one was, which ended up being a huge other flop in terms of.
Here's what I think. I think Swaybox needs to do the next Terminator.
Sure, and if that works,
that's what I think.
If that works, cool. But is Swaybox gonna do it for like more? Like, is it gonna cost more to do it this way than the other way?
I don't know, man. You sound like an old Disney exec.
No, I'm just asking from the perspective of like, if I want more stories in the Terminator universe, right? Because I do enjoy that. And now that you're mentioning it, the fact of like, I do remember now that I do want to go back and watch Sarah Connor Chronicles. I want more stories in the Terminator universe. So are they going to give me more anime stories because that'll make it easier for them to tell them? Or is it going to be, well, you're going to have to wait until someone bugs up the money thinking that a Terminator movie is going to be going worth it? Because that's the other call.
Here's the thing that I think is kind of interesting about the Terminator franchise, and I think it's true of especially like 80s franchises that they've tried to keep going for this long. The first two movies, there's a very simplistic story underneath with a very cool concept, but those were very much about the special effects. And I think we've, as a society, particularly in movies, gone beyond what they were able to do then. And I don't think that the underlying story, they've evolved quite as much to match our current sensibilities. So I don't know if you guys remember this. Terminator 2 was like a watershed moment, like almost like the Matrix in terms of its visual, like, holy crap, how did you make this liquid metal dude do all this stuff?
Blew my mind.
So that's part of the thing that made it such a big deal, and I don't think they've done a good job of going like, okay, we're not gonna do that again. I don't know how much farther we can go beyond what we've done, or maybe they can. They just haven't figured it out.
Like I said, they need to hire Swaybox to do the next iteration. That way we can start thinking that a little.
I don't need that. I think that there is a lot more in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be new, but I do think that there are interesting things that they talk about with regard to fate and these Jesus characters and what does it mean. Like, now is the time for a really good Terminator story as we're fighting with AI and what does it mean for society. And it seems like they're struggling to understand where that story should be now. And I think that the story element of Terminator should be where they go versus the visual effects versus the action type stuff. And they just completely whiffed in that aspect to me. So yeah, that's...
I mean, I think you could do a modern day story in real world 2024 with the sort of rise of the AI and funding, and start to go from there. And like, if you were going to do like a real live action stuff, right? Like, it's very prime for
that. Yeah. I don't think that they haven't figured out what they want to do, and I don't think that they've understood how to evolve this story beyond what made it great. And I say that as someone that actually did enjoy Dark Fate.
Let's go ahead and move on then to the next big thing that we'll be talking about today, and that is the Wild Robot, which all of us managed to catch over the past week or so. I caught it last Friday, so over a week ago, and
kept it to himself.
Kept it to myself. I actually meant to mention it, but kept forgetting to. But it is the new DreamWorks animated film. It follows a robot that is, for lack of a better term, sort of lost in the wilderness. And it is about them sort of adapting to this violent ecosystem full of very aggressive and dickish animals who, oh my god, these animals are assholes. I mean, they are such assholes.
I think it's just animals, bro. I don't think you have to be like aggressive. That's just animals.
They're aggressive. No, they're aggressive. No, they're mean. They're mean.
Yeah, but they have to be.
Yeah.
I think
they're mean. They're so mean. I've never come across a squirrel that's that mean, or a raccoon that's that mean. Well, raccoons are pretty mean.
I was going to say, I think.
But I mean, they violently attack in droves this robot. And whatever. And the point is, it's about the robot. She finds a baby goose who then she ultimately has to raise. And that's kind of where the story takes it from there. So, Diego, I'm not sure if you're in a good spot to talk, but I guess what were your initial thoughts or expectations going into this movie, and what were your thoughts overall?
So I normally try to do the thing that when I see movies and I see the sort of premise, like I'll watch either the release initial like teaser trailer or like just sort of look at like the very first thing that gets released, and then that's it, and then I stop looking at stuff, because in modern day movies, right, I feel like they throw too much a trailer, or they can ruin the story. And so I try to go in with as little knowledge as possible into a movie, to be surprised. And so all I knew going into this was, again, who was behind it, the people, and I saw the trailer and what it looked like. It looked freaking really good. The animation looked freaking beautiful. And then what the premise of the story was, which is, again, a robot finds itself in the wilderness, and then it had found a little goose, and then that was it. And so when I went in, again, I did not know what to expect. Obviously, we talked about it, that we were all really excited, and the previews of the movie were getting really high reviews. And so I was excited to see what the movie was about. And when I left the movie, I'll tell you, I was super fucking blown away by the story, the emotional beats of the movie, the voice acting. Like, it took me about halfway through the movie to realize that was Pedro Pascal doing the voice of the fox. Because I swear to God, I kept thinking it was the guy that does Sonic's voice. I can't remember the guy's name.
Ben Schwartz?
Yeah, I thought it was Ben Schwartz for like part of the movie, because I was like, it sounds very Ben Schwartzy at times. But I was like, no, there were times where his accent showed, and I was like, that's Pedro Pascal 100%. And, all the different people that were doing the story. And, like, it was such a great emotional film that I think I left and I was like, because I went to go watch it with my girlfriend. And I walked out and I was like, I got to call my mom.
Yeah, it is definitely one of those movies that would do that. But, I think, I don't know, Jonesy, what are your thoughts? What were your thoughts going into it, and what did you ultimately think of it at the end of the day?
I saw the initial trailer for it when I went to see something else, and I remember I was like, oh, that looks interesting. I had no real interest in actually seeing it. And then a friend of mine was like, man, I just saw it and it was fantastic. And so I think he told me that on a Friday. So I took family to see it on Sunday. And I was completely blown away. So apparently my son has read at least one of the books, and he started trying to spoil what happens in the next book. And I'm like, shut up, just shut up. Like, I don't hear it. And so and then my daughter, during like the entire last act, was just crying, like just wiping her eyes, crying, like almost inconsolable about everything that she was seeing. And I just thought that this was a fantastic film. I hate to use the phrase instant classic, but that's what it felt like to me, something that I know that I could watch again and get more out of. But then the last thing that I thought was, in terms of DreamWorks movies, this is easily in the top 3 to me. Generally, they do lots of comedy, like funny haha type stuff, and it's fine, but none of it ever really sticks with me in something like, I'm going to watch that again. And I thought that this film really hit that mark. And I'm curious, for the studio, do they think that this represents like a turning point in how they'll make their movies?
So I agree with what everyone has said so far. I was pretty excited going into this movie because I thought the trailer that I saw was amazing. The animation looked gorgeous, and I was just like, I'm ready to cry. I'm ready to go in. And admittedly, the first 15 minutes or so, while the animation was gorgeous, I was just like, is this the whole movie? Is that she's just going to be reacting to these animals like trying to assault her constantly? And I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot, really. I'm hoping that she starts making decisions other than self-defense. And then when the baby came along, the little baby goose came along, and I was like, okay, cool. Now we're in business. So the animation, absolutely gorgeous. And basically from that moment on with the baby goose, it was like it's just pure magic. And I think also a big strength of this movie, among many strengths, was the score. The score was one heavy-handed score in the best way possible. Like it wasn't just tugging at your heartstrings, it was yanking them. Like it was just pulling them and just puppeting me like I was a freaking marionette, because at that moment, like partway through the movie where you have that big moment with the what's his name, Bright Bill, and him flying with the other gooses, it was just like felt it. You felt every single moment. As somebody who doesn't have a child, I still felt it. And in addition to that, I think this whole movie has really strong themes, and with regards to the idea of changing your code to raise another being, how important that is. But then also just changing your instincts when you have to rise to an occasion that extended to all of the animals as well. I just thought was so narratively strong. It was so good. And I just like this idea. I think this builds on a trope. So you have the trope having to do with, not trope, what's the word I'm looking for? There are generally in storytelling a few different types of stories or characters. And a lot of it is usually you have a main character who has a flaw that needs to be fixed in some way or addressed in some way. Sometimes you do have a story where they aren't inherently flawed, but everyone around them is, and the story is about them changing people around them. Let's look at something like WALL-E, maybe. WALL-E doesn't really have an arc, but everyone else around him has an arc. This one is kind of more like Ted Lasso, I will say, in that the main character, has an arc in addition to everyone around them. So they transform and make everyone around them better, all while having their own sort of flaws addressed and transformed. It's just really, it made it all the more impactful because it wasn't just focused on her, but everyone else around her. And it's just done very, very well. And just at the very end, during that climactic scene, it was just immensely satisfying, because I was talking about how annoying the animals were at the beginning and how aggressive, and I was like, these guys, they're such assholes. Like, they're really, really mean and just bad and annoying, and I hate all of them. How they managed to, over the course of the story, like, that was the point. That was the point, and they paid it off in a way that just made me rethink that whole beginning sequence where I wasn't so sure at the beginning. So overall, gold star movie, really fucking great. Could not recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you said the flaws that need to be worked on. The thing that I found interesting was she wasn't really flawed, right? Like, this is how she just was. Well, she's a robot, right?
Yeah,
so
that's the flaw. The flaw is that she didn't have compassion, and she needed to work a way around. She needed to literally rewrite herself as a person in order to be an effective parent.
Right, and I guess that's the reason why I say it's not a flaw. Like, she was designed that way. It's a feature, not a bug. Okay. Which is different, right? And so I think that that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, in the end, you're still right. Like, it's an opportunity for growth. But I think that that's fun and that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about the movie except that I really enjoyed it. To your point about the themes, like the themes about found family and the themes about raising kids, and then like almost what to do once your kids leave too. I thought that was really good. So it's fun. It's a really great movie. Oh.
Some youth is driving their vehicle really fast around you.
Dominic Toretto.
Yeah. Living life 1/4 mile at a time.
You said family, that's why.
That was it. He's like, I've been summoned. Anyways, Diego, anything else to add on your end?
No,
I felt like you were going to pop in a couple times.
I'm going to be honest. I thought to myself, I want to come in and say about how bad the movie was, about how I didn't like it at all because both of you guys liked it. but I couldn't
I
do
just
it.
I pinged Jonesy at the beginning. I pinged Jonesy as he started talking. I was like, we should pretend we hate this movie and see what Diego does.
Well, considering both of you guys are already on record,
I wasn't looking.
Was me coming in afterwards and just like, okay, how good could it possibly be? The movie's great. The movie's fucking phenomenal. I can't like DreamWorks. The one thing I do want to go back to, Jonesy, is what did you mean when you said about like how they changed DreamWorks' like style in the future?
So as I look at like the movies that they put out, like Trolls, Captain Underpants, and other stuff, even things that are based on other properties, like, and I think How to Train Your Dragon is kind of a one-off. This seems more in line with How to Train Your Dragon than the other stuff.
But Puss in Boots was good.
I was going to say Puss in Boots.
I didn't say
like
Puss in Boots, I think, was the shift.
It's not
that
a
you're
quality
about.
thing. Yeah, I don't think it's a quality thing. I think it is. There is something. This seemed like a much more emotional story. And I think Puss in Boots does have some elements of that, especially the last one, where there's just like a literal confrontation with death and what does life mean. I don't think that the first ones were like that. Those seem more fun and kind of comedy first, as opposed to the last Puss in Boots. And so maybe you're right about like that being the shift. And so that How to Train Your Dragon seemed like a more serious
Kung Fu Panda
story.
You don't like Kung Fu Panda? How dare you?
It's not that it's not a quality or do I like it kind of thing. I just think that there is something that is less serious about them overall. And maybe it's just the Jack Black element where it's like, oh no, this is just for comedy. It's just funny.
I think you mean like the other ones felt like they had more elements that felt pandering to kids versus
there's that too.
Not. Yeah. Because I guess I could look at How to Train Your Dragon, and I could look at Puss in Boots and this one and feel like didn't feel like it's pandering to kids because this movie's kind of dark too, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's very nihilistic in the
there's
beginning
a death?
too. Like with there's a lot of humor that's very dark. Like when the possum mama's like, I have 6.
Yeah.
And then,
the crab that gets eaten.
Yeah, exactly. Just like a whole bunch of little like mini things around there that are just like super dark and like the kids talking about death all the time.
The fleeting nature of life.
Yeah. Like I remember those two things happen relatively close in time. And like when that crab is getting eaten, like I looked at my wife and was like, oh my God, like what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. Like they don't pull any punches.
No
on that stuff.
I guess the last thing I'll say is, are we talking spoilers?
Yeah.
Sure. Spoilers Spoilers for the wild robot in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I loved the robot that showed up to claim Roz. I don't know what it is about me that I really enjoy these overly perky characters that are really just murderers. There is something about my personality where I'm like, I like that one. Like, I know they're going to get their comeuppance. I know they never last, but they're just like fun when they're on screen because it's like I know that there's like some high level of anxiety going on within them, even as a robot, where they're just really hiding their murderous traits and just waiting for it to come out. So the second she was on the screen, I'm like, oh, I know how this is going to go. It was just like a lot of fun to watch that play out. Yeah, that's it.
If we're talking spoilers, I will say the one thing I wasn't so sure about in terms of the ending was like that whole epic sequence for her to just decide, I'm going to go with them anyway. And I'm like, oh, come on. You all just did it and won, and you're just going to go anyway. What was the point of all of that if you were just going to go away anyway?
Because you saw the destruction that happened when she was there.
Yeah, not only that, but also she said, we're going to keep coming after you, is what the robot said as it was dying. And then like they asked her like,
no, okay. You're
like,
right. I'm wrong. You're right.
Because obviously there was a language barrier.
You're right, Diego. My God. No, that makes sense. You guys are right. That's. I amend my opinion based on that.
You're so selfish. You're just like, stay in the forest. You're good.
Well, it was more about just like having all of that happen for it to just be like, I'll go back anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the part that I wasn't sure of is when she goes, "This will be my migration, and I will come back," and then she never does.
Yet.
Yeah, yet.
Okay.
This is a book series from what I'm tracking.
Yeah, it's a trilogy so far, I think.
I don't want to know what happens.
And I think, I think this. Let's see here. Hold on. I think this just covers the first one. That spoiler alert is called "The Wild Robot Escapes." So.
Oh, okay. Well, just like the How to Train Your Dragon series, is definitely going to have some, some elements. I'm sure being put in the second movie.
What do you mean?
So,
because How to Train Your Dragon was also a book series. But it wasn't a 1-to-1 recreation into this. It was because I think it was more than just 3 books. It was like multiple books, and so certain ideas from different books were incorporated into each movie. From my understanding, again, I never read the books, but the movies were phenomenal.
Well, I have The Wild Robot, the book. It was at my local little library, so I stole it away from a child that would likely enjoy it so that I can enjoy it myself. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read it soon. The first page was good. So that's all.
I thought you said the first 100 pages.
No, the first... Maybe. I'll get him back. I'll be like, 100 pages. It was good. I stopped reading it, though. I gave up.
It looks like this is doing well, so hopefully that means we get the rest.
Yeah, I don't see how it wouldn't. It's got a lot of accolades, a lot of push going behind it, especially for how great, like you were talking about, DreamWorks' like efforts are definitely shown in the movie. Like I said, my girlfriend went in not knowing anything about the movie and loved it. And she was like, "Why do you bring me to like every single time we go out to see movies lately? It's been emotional trauma, like." Because the last movie that we went to go see was Inside Out 2, and she was like, "Why do you do this to me?"
It's fair.
It's because I love you, baby.
Yep. So far, the movie has made not a lot, 63.5 million, but I don't know the budget. So Wild Robot budget. Oh my goodness. Wait, no, never mind. $78 million is what. Wait, yeah, what it looks like the budget was for this movie.
Yeah.
So it's still still has a journey. It's probably got to get at least $150 to $200 million in order to break even. I'm hoping it makes it, but we shall see. So everyone, if you have not seen The Wild Robot, go see The Wild Robot because I want a sequel.
When I went to see Transformers last night, there were people still going to see Wild Robot. So I think it might have legs.
Good. So Transformers 1 has made $80 million so far. What was the budget for that? Transformers 1 budget.
I heard that's also good. I'm sure, Jonesy, you were alluding to it earlier about how good it was.
$75 million is how much it cost. So it'll probably around the same, like I said, about $150 to $200 million in order to break even. So who knows if it even gets to that point? Because I know that's been out for a few weeks.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think The Last Robot is gonna be a similar movie, sort of like with Inside Out 2, where it wasn't like gangbusters at the beginning. It's going to be a very, very slow burn that people will start hearing about it and start taking their kids to over time. I think it's one of these movies where like it doesn't pop off right away because there's other stuff that came out. You had more people going to go see. I guarantee you had more people going to go see Joker 2 this weekend than they went to go see other movies.
Ugh.
But Joker 2 is not going to last. What do you mean?
Joker 2 isn't doing too hot right now.
Yeah, the reviews.
What I'm hearing.
No, I know the reviews are horrible. What I'm saying is like in terms of box office, people are going to go see the movie just to see how bad the movie actually is. But it's not interesting. This movie, you're going to see like 2-3 weeks from now still being a top 3 movie that people are going to take their kids to.
I actually read about the ending. Just that's how much I didn't
Whoa.
want to see the movie.
Well, don't tell me. I'll see it eventually.
I wasn't going to spoil it. Like,
stop spoiling shit.
No, I
stop. You got to stop. You just got to stop spoiling it. You got to stop spoiling it. Okay. All right. I think Anyone else have anything else they want to say about the wild robot?
Negatory.
No.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for this episode of InkHaus Radio. We did it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Jonesy, where can people find you?
Nowhere.
Where can people find you, Diego?
Same thing as before last week.
Okay, then. You can find me at AJ Cerna Writer across all social media platforms, and you can check out my books under the name AJ Cerna on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com, wherever you want to find your books online. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
So I'm looking at the